We're going to interrupt the song because the time in our studios is right at 11 o'clock. It's on a Tuesday. Once again, good morning and kalimera to our audience. It's been a busy, busy show. Great music. And of course, a full 50 minutes with Dave Paleologos. And now we welcome Manny Frangiadakis. Manny, good morning, kalimera. I'm joined by both Professor Petro Vamvaka and Mike Janity this morning, and we're all ears because the market went a little bit crazy, I think, since the last time we spoke. One of the days last week, I think it might have been the Tuesday we were together. After that, the market went up like 700 points one day. Then it jumped down another 500. We've got more political news in the horizon. So, what does that mean for all of us on the financial side of things? Manny will bring it from there. Good morning, Manny.
Good morning,
Good
Manny.
morning, gentlemen. How are you?
Doing well. How are you? Nice to hear you.
Doing well. Nice to hear your voice, Professor.
Yeah. Well, I left Crete, so now it's your time to go.
Yeah,
A little tag
you'll be
team there.
That's
switching
right.
soon. It's a tag team right there.
That's right. That's right. But yeah, look, as we talked about last week, Teddy, I think we're in the midst of a rotation here. So what's been going on? Obviously from a political standpoint, obviously you had the assassination attempt, and then you've had Biden stepping down and removing himself from the ballot, and passing the baton to Harris. Right now, what's been happening in the market has been essentially putting in what looks like to be a Trump trade. So right now, and it's not necessarily going to stay that way. We're still 100 days away from the election, and as we know, that's an eternity, and a lot can change. But at the moment, what's working is what the market sees as potentially the Trump trade. So what we talked about last week is a rotation out of those large cap names, in particular the growth names, and investors going to the side of the market that hasn't really participated in the rally for the last couple of years, that is ultra cheap, and that is the Russell 2000 and the small cap index, and that will be small cap and mid cap value. Presently, how we're allocated, and that's where you're seeing the larger pops these days. So as you start to see the Dow and the S&P trade downwards, you're actually starting to see the Russell really start to form a bullish trend. So even presently, right now, with the S&P up about 18, 1.8 tenths out of 1%, essentially, the Russell 2000 is almost up 1% on the day. So it's a pretty big divergence, and that continues to take place in the market.
Any movement in the energy sector there, Manny? Like you
Yeah, a
talk
little
about.
bit, but not much. I mean,
Yeah.
WTI, West Texas Intermediate crude, has pulled back slightly. You're also starting to see some of the energy stocks pull back slightly. Occidental Petroleum, which was a big bet by Warren Buffett as well as others for the last couple of years, he just started to actually dwindle down his position, and that stock is getting hit because of it. So the energy sector is hanging in there, but it's also, what's going on in the energy sector right now is the economy is slowing down. All the data points for the last couple of months and year show that. So the energy market is depicting kind of teetering on the line of, are we going into recession or not? As we know, when we go into recession, we use significantly less energy than we do during times of growth.
Yeah,
So that is kind of what's taking place in the energy market.
yeah, it's that drill baby drill chant that came out of the Republicans last week that prompted me to ask you that.
And that's a great point, because that again comes into the Trump trade. So if the market is going to price in a Trump victory come November, well then that's exactly what it's going to be. It's going to be drill baby drill, which means we're going to bring more supply to the market. Most likely become the largest supplier to the energy market, like we did under Trump's previous administration, and that's going to bring down the price of WTI, which is also going to bring down the profits of these energy companies.
Yeah. But then you have somebody like Elon Musk who has come out strongly in favor of Trump now. So what's the motivation there? What on the other side of this electric vehicle
Well,
argument?
well, that is exactly it. So by putting his support forward with Trump, Trump has started to change his narrative, I should say, around EVs. During his campaigning for the last year to 2 years, he was very negative on EVs. So by aligning himself with President Trump and what looks like to be based off of the betting odds and what the market's pricing in, he's still currently at about 68% chance right now.
Yeah.
So if you are Elon Musk and you are dependent on EV sales, it'd be a pretty good idea to maybe align yourself with who you think will be the victor in the election and make sure that he's favorable on a business standpoint to your core products.
Yeah. Well, because raw material is a big piece right now in geopolitics. Sub-Saharan Africa and Southern America.
Oh, yeah.
Bolivia, Argentina. Lots of movement there from a geopolitical perspective, and just that energy piece is very, very big there.
Yeah, and then the other thing that you're starting to see too, as it relates to the Trump trade, is a decline in the U.S. dollar, because both Trump and his vice president-elect, J.D. Vance, have been, very bearish on the dollar, saying that they want to see the dollar extremely weak, that they want to increase global exports. So you're starting to see that play out. You're starting to see the dollar decline in terms of value. You're starting to see things like gold pop up. If that was to take place, if you were going to price in a Trump presidency and it does come to fruition, the dollar starts to decline, that's going to lead us to potentially a commodity super cycle. To your point, with all this industrial production going globally and the hunt for rare materials, it could become a global race to see who could capture more supply.
Yeah.
Manny, or this morning I heard interest rates. I think we touched upon it last week that we may get one or two drops, maybe. Now I heard this morning on the way in, don't even think about a drop until at least after the election. I mean that's what I heard.
I think they're going to come in and deliver. Look, it depends on the data.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, like, you had a pretty hot retail sales number, so that's kind of inflationary. That's the most recent print. That's kind of putting them more to the sidelines in terms of a rate cut. But I do think they step up. I think the Fed is trying to be seen as being political right now and completely, independent. I think they're going to step up and they're going to deliver 25 basis points of cuts come September. But I think you're only going to get one and done.
Yeah, but the inflation piece on the prices is like it's a big concern throughout right now. I mean, even it was just in Greece or in Europe, even here in the United States, it just seems that we can't move forward beyond the prices and how expensive everything is these days, and it's having really a huge effect.
Yeah, and yes, inflation has come down a lot, and the way that we measure inflation is over on a year-over-year basis. So you could say, yeah, it was at 9% a couple of years ago, and now we must be winning because we're at like 3.4%. Well, that's still a long way away from the 2% mandate that the Fed has.
Mm-hmm.
So even from this, we always talked about it for like the last year and a half. That last mile of inflation, as we see it drop in terms of the CPI and PCE, that last mile is going to be incredibly difficult to maneuver, because prices usually don't come down unless something bad drastically happens in the economy. Yeah. And then you have to, stimulate consumer demand. But at this point in time, it's going to be really hard for prices to drop any further.
What happens in the event of a Republican victory to several industries? Mostly to do, what happens to solar, what happens to wind? Are we going to see a diminish on that? I saw something, at one of these rallies, they were like, stop it all now, he'll stop it all. I don't think he's going to stop it in its tracks. I mean, don't we need pan metros aris somewhere in the middle? Don't we need, to be on this?
You would think, but it could, and it depends on how you look at a Republican victory, because there's a lot of people that are still, thinking based off of the last couple of weeks that you get a red wave, meaning that the Republicans take the presidency, the House, and the Senate. So if they get all three, I mean, then that's gonna, they're gonna really be able to change policies in this country, including potentially, the Inflation Reduction Act, which has a ton of money going into, green energy. Yeah. So you could see that get pulled back. You could see, like Pedro just said, drill baby drill. You could see an increase in oil production. You could see an increase in coal production, as well as natural gas.
And I don't think it's that absolute. I mean, like, even if you look over the last two presidencies, both the Trump presidency and the Biden presidency, the Biden presidency has not moved away from coal and oil or LNG, from gas. I mean, the United States, has
Just the
a
rhetoric has.
Exactly. So the United States, the LNG alone, we have shifted the dominance of Russia had in Europe as far as gas was concerned to the U.S. The U.S. has done very well as far as providing gas to the Europeans over the last couple of years since Russia has moved more eastward. So we're seeing a diversification right now and realignment of our energy sectors. But the U.S. has not necessarily gone all in one way and abandoned something else. And you can even see it in other countries like Saudi Arabia. I mean, Saudi Arabia right now is like diversifying and going to solar and other means. You can look at the choices that we've made for the last two COP meetings, in Egypt and Dubai, and the next one in Azerbaijan, still under democratic administrations. Some of that is more rhetoric than anything else. And I think the U.S. is sort of like leveraging having a predominant position in gas and oil, and also being a leader in as far as solar is concerned. And if you're not a leader, then you try to stop the other countries that are like China. So I don't know. That's the way I look at it. I don't know if I'm completely off base on this one.
No, I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
Do you think we're going to see an influx, and kind of changing a little bit, but do you think we'll see an influx of people crossing the border prior to the to the November elections? Do you think we're going to see an increase?
The border has been shut, hasn't it?
Well,
Yeah, it has.
it has been, but there's still,
No, it has been shut, and I think it's just they and there's a Trump victory over the last 3 years. I mean, Trump has forced the Biden administration to move to his position and even more drastic means, and I think that's one of those weaknesses that the Trump people are going to really pounce on. Somebody like Kamala Harris, as she will be painted as the immigration czar and somebody that has failed. So this issue of immigration is it's going to be one of those things that we'll hear again and again about, and even some policies like Governor Abbott and his policy of sending about 120,000 immigrants north to northern states. I think this is one of those powerful things for the Republicans right now.
I agree. And to your question, Teddy, I don't know. I mean, they're threatening deportation every single day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, he talked about the Eisenhower policy. So I don't know how many people know. The Eisenhower policy was called the wetback policy. We had brought in, during the Second World War, we had brought in over 500,000 Mexican workers as the U.S. workers were depleted going to war.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Eisenhower administration came in and sent back about 1 million. And they called it, at the time, I don't know, you can use the term today, but they call it the wetback policy. That's what former President Trump has referenced in his convention last week. So we're talking about a very drastic policy here as far as deportation is concerned.
Mm-hmm. 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 Interesting time we live in, gentlemen. Manny, when are you leaving for Greece? Soon, right?
Sunday.
I told you it was like a tag.
Yeah. So I'm assuming that next Tuesday you'll be in your bathing suit on the shores of some beautiful beach in Greater Iraklion talking to us.
Absolutely. So we'll be fully plugged in and fully ready to go.
I have a question for you though, David. Hey, David, Manny. My question has to do with the fact that I see more and more of India since Davos this year. And even the Republican convention, India is brought up more and more, and it seems like they sort of like the
breaking
news.
Breaking news. Secret Service director just resigned. Breaking news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The antithesis to China,
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Look, India's been one of the hottest parts of the market for the last call it year and a half. I mean, it's really leading the charge across emerging markets, and you'll see it pick up. Because that's part of the Trump trade, too.
Yeah.
If you lower the dollar and you increase exports, well, you're going to make international products more competitive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's
At that point, too, yeah, you could see a huge bull market in EM if the dollar weakens substantially.
Yeah. Gentlemen, another great week of market update. Manny Frangiadakis, 12 Points Wealth Management, joins us each and every Tuesday, right on time, I might add, at 11 o'clock, along with the professor.
Have a great time in Crete.
Thank you, Manny.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We'll
You have no
regroup
choice.
next
Hey, we
week.
get GDP on Thursday. That's the next big data print. And in between now and then, we're rolling with earnings, right? So you got Meta today after the bell. You could see some shakeout in the tech sector, depending on how profits come in and what their narrative or rhetoric, I should say, will be about AI.
Yeah. We'll find out.
Sounds
We'll find
great.
out. Manny, be well. Thank you.
Bye-bye, Manny.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, guys.
All right,
Good
a
day.
little music. We'll be back with, we got some more sponsors. Mike Janity's in the house. We're going to have a little disco music at 12. Don't go anywhere. You're tuned to WNTN Radio, Cambridge, Needham, Boston.